What took place on July 20th, 1969? Well, back in the 1960s, in the early 1960s, we were in the Cold War, and actually beyond the 60s, well into the 1980s, late 1980s, we were still in the Cold War. But at this point, us and the Soviet Union, we were at odds with each other, and the Soviet Unions, of course, had put a man-made satellite into space, Sputnik, which went around, and then they were also the first country to put a man in space with Yuri Gagarin. Um, President Kennedy came out in 1962, I'm sorry, 1963 at Rice University and gave a speech saying, well, we the United States, we're going to put a man on the moon by the end of this decade. And so, of course, President Kennedy was later assassinated, unfortunately. But this program went on, and we kind of built up and ramped up to this project, starting with the Mercury missions, and then to the Gemini missions, and then finally with the Apollo. The Apollo missions were actually ones that took us to the moon. And of course, it was the Apollo 11 where we had the first man on the moon, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins was also on that mission. Don't get Apollo 11 mixed up with Apollo 13. Of course, famous movie Apollo 13. This was after we put a man on the moon. We were going back, and that mission, of course, had some problems, and they never actually landed on the moon, but they did make it home safely.